Okay folks, so we are going to do the last video in my summer update tour series for 2023, and I'm going to call this the pond garden beds. This little empty hole you see there is what I call the pond. I have a lot of videos on that if you want to know why is it empty and I still call it a pond, and then you can look at those videos. Okay, so I want to cut in to mention that when I made this video, it was the 4th of July.
And I like to party.
And I had started to celebrate fairly early, or I was slightly inebriated, but patriotically so. I want to make sure I point that out. So you might hear a few places in the video where I misspeak.
Sweet.
And in the past, I separated this into two videos. This bed that goes all the way down this fence line this way, I called it the pond northeast or north garden bed. And the pond that goes this way, I called the pond south bed. I'm going to try to combine it all into one video this year because as I've mentioned in the past few videos, I've scaled back substantially versus what I grow in past years. So that's why I'm going to combine them into this video. So what you'll see for starters is, as you've seen if you've watched any of the other series, the sunflowers. And there's a reason why I grow them. I have a short on why those are good to grow for soil improvement. And they do provide food. And I've got a video on this on my channel, which is called Fuzzy Bean. And there's a reason why I grow that too. It's both possibly edible and does improve the soil. So I'm going to start here. We have this little guy right here, super tiny. In previous years it was larger. It is a Swiss chard. Why is it so small? Well, this is also my most neglected garden bed. I watered it for the first time, I would say about 3 days ago, and we've had 107 degrees already in June, which is really not very normal, and we've had over a month without any rain. So that's the reason for the smaller size. Although you can tell that the wild strawberry doesn't seem to mind all that much. In fact, it's spreading. We have 1, 2, 3 crowns of wild strawberry that have set itself. And then behind that, we've got, this is actually a peanut. And what kind of peanut? I've got multiple different types of peanuts growing. And then behind that, we have a thornless blackberry. You see it's growing all the way up here. It's probably about 7 foot tall. This little guy, which keeps getting in my way, is ironweed. There are supposed to be some medicinal properties to it and some edible value, but I personally have not partaken in what it supposedly can offer. So I do let it grow though. It is perennial and I think it's pretty, and it is very useful for pollinators. Okay, moving on. Why is this bed so small before I move on? You see all these little sticks laying around? I mentioned this last year. I do a chop and drop method where I lay these sticks down to kill any like stuff that weeds and whatnot that I don't want growing, and to improve the soil as it breaks down. And then when I'm ready, I move those out of the way and I plant in it. And I just haven't had time to get to this garden bed. That's why it only has those 3 main crops in it. There's actually some dormant garlic. You can actually see one of the old dormant garlics here. There's a bunch of them, 5 or 6 of them in here. But this time of the year, they're all gone, as you can see. So let's move on. This is what I call my peanut bed, and you can see I've got thistle still holding on. Let's see if we get a nice little shot of that.
5 minutes later.
And despite standing here for 5 minutes trying to get that thistle to show up, it never did show up. But you can see that that's probably the only flower of the thistle that's still going. Most of them have already gone to seed, and I'm spreading those around. Hopefully I get thistle in more areas. I'll take just a moment to speak about these little guys. I have these little elms all over the place. I say little, their trunks are in some places 3 inches in diameter, and maybe one day I'll dig them up and turn them into bonsai. But I keep them here for the copious amounts of free inputs that they provide to my garden beds. So let's get in here and look at what crops are going. You can see we have a garlic in this bed, it's still got a seed head on it. We've got a commercial strawberry right here, going pretty strong and spreading, as you can see. And loads of the fuzzy bean, these little 3-leaf guys right here, that's fuzzy bean. And wood sorrel up underneath that. And in the back, step in here, we still have, in one or two places, I used to have a big mat of wild strawberry growing all in here, and I've now only got about that left right there. Oh, nope, got a little bit more right here. So we got some wild strawberry in there, and that's growing at the foot of this thornless blackberry, which has gotten bigger than it ever has. And we got some of the native morning glory growing. I forget one of the other common names for it, but I'll annotate, as I always try to do. Mixed in with the fuzzy bean to provide some trellis. And mixed in with the strawberry, we have a peanut there and another peanut down here, which is nice. And let's see, behind, in the same line as the thornless blackberry right here, we have some okra. You see it's quite small. In past years it's usually larger, but the weird weather we've had, lack of rain, and I planted late, hasn't really grown very large. All right, towards the front I have a Blonde de Leon French sorrel right here, doing okay. I bent this sunflower over, which was providing shade for it, which was really a mistake. But it's doing okay, it's still alive. I've talked about how I bend the sunflowers over instead of getting rid of them in other videos. So if you're interested, you can go look that up. And I have a winecup that's still growing here, spreading around, dropping its seed. I think the winecup does have some edible value. And of course, I'm just going to stop mentioning it, but there's tons of fuzzy bean mixed in just simply all over the place for the edible value and the soil improvement. Here we have another thistle growing that's dropping its seed. Try to get that out of my way as I step in here. And I got a very tiny little Georgia collard. And why is it so tiny? I planted it late, and the lack of water, as I've already mentioned. I'm not too worried about it. These are very long-lived. And as long as they stay alive, once the fall gets here and we get some more water and some better temperatures, then it will start to take off. We got another Georgia collard. You can see how it got attacked. I've mentioned this in other videos, but yet it sprouts back just fine. Very resilient to the pests. Still got a chard holding strong. It's about 2 years old. And behind that, I have a newly planted wild rocket arugula, a perennial arugula, and it's taken hold quite well, so I'm not going to be worried about that. I had some mustard, some southern curly leaf mustard, but it didn't make it, and it's not going to make it. And of course, mixed in, we got the native morning glory and the ubiquitous fuzzy bean, which is happening to grow up a Texas persimmon. That's what this tree is here, this little tree. Okay, let me step back out of this bed carefully. Don't want to step on anything. All mixed in this bed. I've got them all over the place. Peanuts, loads of peanuts. You can see them just mixed in all over the place. I'm trying to find them. They're up underneath stuff. There's another peanut down here. Yeah, they're just all over the place here. That's why I call it the peanut bed, because it's primarily peanuts. Got the odd sunflower here and there mixed in with the fuzzy bean and the prairie tea right here, Croton monanthaginus, all mixed in this bed. I do have one southern curly leaf still holding strong right here on the very edge of the bed. And more peanut. You can see probably needs some water. I have one quince right here holding strong with more peanut. I'm not even going to go into how many peanuts there are because there's just tons of them in here. And the fuzzy bean actually is providing shade. I've mentioned before in my past videos that shade is extremely important. And peanuts do need full sun, but right now they're benefiting from the shade. And we've had like a slight break in temperatures for about a week. We're dropping into the high 90s. But after that, it's going to pick up into the hundreds, and it looks like it's going to stay that way the whole summer. And it looks like it's going to be a very dry summer as well. If it sounds like this video is a little bit more disorganized than others, I have to apologize. It's 4th of July today, and I've had just a one too many. So bear with me, please.
Sucking back on Grandpa's old cough medicine?
All right, so, you know, more of the heart-shaped leaves, these morning glories and the prairie tea right here, mixed in with some very small but holding strong okra. You see they're all back here on this back line part of this garden. All right, I'm back from my little technical difficulty. You can see we got some okra growing, holding strong. Got this okra, I don't know, about 6 or 7 plants, all of course mixed in with these little morning glories. Prairie turnip, or prairie tea, sorry. And you know what, while I'm here, I'm going to mention the prairie turnip. I have a couple of videos on my channel talking about the prairie turnip, and this was the last stronghold of the prairie turnip. I took what I sprouted in pots and I planted them in the ground, and the one that I planted in this bed actually survived the longest. But I think I had about 5 plants that survived the seeding, and 4 out of the 5 were eaten completely down to the ground. There was nothing left for about the first 4 of the 5 plants, and then the last one held strong in this garden bed until fairly recently.
Nothing was there anymore.
What you can see here is I have a dead, but it's actually seeded, because it's not its time of year, plantain growing, a native plant, and more of the okra going strong here. Small, but still going strong. Behind that in the walkway, just a ton of the croton monanthaginus, the prairie tea. More of the okra holding strong on the back side. And you can see how the blackberry sends out suckers and sprouts all over the place, and I kind of just let it do its thing. All right, that takes care of the south part of the pond.
All right, so I'm going to cut in here and tell you why I have a plant circled on screen. Inside that circle, you'll see some stalks, and that is actually asparagus on the south side of the pond, right along the bank. There's probably about 6 crowns of asparagus there on that part. I totally forgot to mention it whenever I made the video.
Down here, I had some mustard planted, but it finally succumbed to the heat and the drought. And of course, the fuzzy bean is completely unaffected. And now we're going to get on to what I call the pond north garden bed. A little bit more lush. We have the channel favorite, chili pequin, growing here. Nice and strong, came back nice after the winter. And we've got a quince. And we've got you can see right here, this is a southern or a Georgia collard growing. It's sprouting back nicely after seeding prolifically. And another Georgia collard that I planted very late, but it's still growing. Very long-lived plant in this area, so hopefully eventually it will be quite large. And then we have nanking cherry mixed in, and of course I do have this year in this bed, I have some peanuts that made it. So we got some peanut in there. Before I move on, I'll get a shot of this beast. We also have comfrey, still going quite well back here, and the beast, the Turk's cap, which is just spread all up inside here. You can see we have quite a bit of it. It's just one plant right now, but growing from beneath it, we have the purple coneflower, Echinacea. Loads of that Echinacea. I'm going to be spreading these seeds around. And you can see there's bunches of them in here. 2 Echinacea, one growing from out from underneath this Turk's cap, and the other one is growing out from underneath this persimmon, Texas persimmon tree. And I'm gonna cut in here while I can because I forgot completely to mention this wild strawberry growing up underneath. You can see it's over here, spread in quite nicely over here. And of course I got a dormant wild onion and a dormant garlic in this bed that I totally missed when I came through the first time. Okay, so now we keep moving down the line of the pond bed. We got some more comfrey down here, and we still have a quince growing strong. I had a Georgia collard growing down here, but it died.
Then it was gone.
But next to it, I have a 3-year-old Georgia collard that has seeded twice, and it's still alive, trying to sprout back. And you can see the fuzzy bean growing up this Texas persimmon. The fuzzy bean can get out of hand, so I probably need to get in here and clear some of this off so some light can get to that tree. This is where I had my Claytonia experiment, right there. So to the left of it, I planted a Georgia collard. It's growing quite nicely. And we've got a black nebula carrot still holding strong. I had more carrots, but they died off. They were growing right here at the base of this mesquite tree, which is going up here. You see, mesquite tree. And at the base of the mesquite tree, we have more Echinacea, purple coneflower. And to the right of the Georgia collard, we have a nice big patch of oregano, which is flowered and going to seed. And mixed in that oregano, I have a briar. Most Texas folks hate briar, but the root, it creates a tuber that's actually edible. Behind the briar, we have a thornless blackberry and another Echinacea. You can see the purple coneflower flowers down in there. And we have another Texas persimmon right here on this side of the elbow bush right there. We step out of this garden bed. The back side, this is that Echinacea that I was telling you out underneath the Texas persimmon. And we have another comfrey. And let's see, and I got some dormant native wild onion growing here. We just kind of let it seed and do its thing. All right, that takes care of that part. Last year, where you see this stick that I have marking it, I had an elderberry, but it did not make it through the winter. So I'll have to plant something else there eventually. As we move down, I have a residual garden bed where I've got some sage holding strong that survived the winter. My rosemary, which succumbed to the winter conditions. And in that same bed, I have an armadillo digging next to my dwarf mulberry. And we have another patch of oregano right here. Nice little patch of oregano. And a quince holding strong but slowly giving in to the drought. And then behind this bed, I have more Echinacea, purple coneflower, growing here at the base of this Texas persimmon, which is almost engulfed in shade. And I've got a lot of work to do behind here. A lot of non-native Japanese privet that needs to be cleared out. It's a constant maintenance nightmare that I have to go through. All right, so that concludes those garden beds. I want to take you and show you one more thing, which is technically not part of these garden beds, but since it's kind of an extra, you know, maybe one day it'll be a separate garden bed in and of itself. But let's go take a look. So we have a boatload of desmanthus, which has flowered and seeded. We have some dormant garlic in here. This is the northernmost part of my property. And we have some horse mint, spotted bee balm, which is growing quite nicely. I say it's the northernmost part of my property, but technically on the other side of this fence, I have another 100 feet to go before my property ends. I just haven't started developing that part yet. I gave kind of a teaser in one of my garden walk and talks about it. I do have some native cactus, some prickly pear, which is still growing actually back here, despite the shaded conditions. And the last part, I have not given this at all any extra water this year. And it shows, but it's just really interesting. These are East Texas plants that are still growing in these conditions without any extra water. What you see here is a black cherry. Almost 100% shade, no extra water. They seem to actually prefer this. So if you want to get black cherry or these more eastern United States type plants growing, it looks like so far with the elderberry and some of the other ones that I've grown, like this one over here behind it, walnut, black walnut, that the secret is to grow it in almost total shade. I am going to have to irrigate these before the summer's over for sure, but it's just neat to see how well they've done without any supplemental irrigation thus far. Black cherry and black walnut. All right, that'll do it, folks. Y'all have a good one. Of course, it would not be a Cross Timbers permaculture video if I didn't have a little extra at the end. See this little stem right here going up? You can see it's pretty much dead. There's no leaves on it. And it re-sprouted from the base right here. When I was doing some clearing over here, I noticed that there was already a black mulberry, full size, not dwarf, black mulberry that had already self-seeded itself here. And it was quite tall. It was about a 15-foot tall tree, maybe even taller than that. The drought last year basically killed it back all the way down to the root. And this is all the re-sprout right here. So a free black mulberry.